Here's a quick and comprehensive guide on bringing the most out of your Wanderer. Starting with the basics, when building Wanderer, you want to get all three of his talents crowned, focusing first on the normal attack, and then focusing on the skill and burst equally, eventually crowning them both. For his weapons, the exact percentage difference on how they compare depends on your specific team, in particularly whether or not you're using Farina. But the only weapons really ever worth using are Tula, Lost Prayers, Widsith, Cashflow, and Tome. Widsith is always his best 4-star weapon, and Tula is always his best weapon overall, up to about 15% better than Widsith, without having to put up with the RNG and downtime that Widsith has. If you're using Farina, Tome and Cashflow are only about 4 to 5% behind Tula. If you're not using Farina, then Lost Prayers and Cashflow are tied for second best, both about 11% behind Tula. Overall, I would highly recommend getting Wanderer's weapon for him if you can. It's not only his strongest weapon, but the attack speed will make him feel better to play. It'll help him get his free dodges from his A4 passive up faster, making him easier to play without a shield. For his artifacts, the best set can depend on several factors. Desert Pavilion is his general best go-to set, but if you're using Farina, 4-piece Hunter is stronger, although the crit rate can be hard to build around. Echoes is tricky because of how good it is depends on more factors such as what weapon you're using, what attack speed threshold you're at. It even depends on ping. Generally speaking, for Echoes to be equal or better to DPC, you'll need to be in a scenario where normal attack spam is already Wanderer's best combo. If you're having to switch from N2C to N3 spam with Echoes, for example, then it's not going to be worth it. But if you were doing N3 already and you have green ping, Echo should be just as good as DPC without needing to perform the charged attack, so that can cut down rotation time. The only set other than these three I'd ever advise on Wanderer is 4-piece VV. You'll lose out on about 17% personal damage or so compared to using DPC or Echoes, but if you were using Wanderer as solo and Nemo in something like a Taser team with a Nefa where there's a lot of sub-DPS damage, then 4-piece VV will be better for overall team damage. And for the main stats, again, the exact difference is going to depend on your specific team and investment, but generally, attack Anemo crit is always going to be best. How much better Anemo is than attack Goblet depends whether or not you are using Bennett and how much damage bonus you already have from other sources, so it's going to be a lot better in teams that don't have many sources of damage bonus, even more so if you're using them on a set like Echoes that doesn't give any. Substats focus on crit, then attack, while also aiming to get a few energy recharge substats to comfortably burst every rotation if you need the ER in your team. And for those energy requirements, if you are solo or Nemo or Farazan isn't C6, don't bother with energy recharge, just burst every other rotation. Otherwise, you shouldn't ever need more than about 120%. If you're playing with his Electro buff, he won't need any ER at all. Now, to ensure you are playing Wanderer properly, it's important to know what combo you should be doing. The main combos for him are normal attack spam, into C, and charged attack spam. If you're playing without any attack speed or buffs for normal attacks, then into C is the best combo, slightly ahead of charged attack spam, although you may prefer to do charged attack spam in scenarios for the stagger or extra AoE. Normal attacks are his best combo if you meet one of the following criteria. If you have 20% more normal attack speed than charged attack speed, if you're using Tula, if you're using C6, or if you're using a support that buffs normal attacks but not charged, such as Yunjin. Additionally, something people tend to get wrong is thinking that using Wanderer's A4 dash is a DPS loss, but it can actually be a DPS gain if used right. In a normal attack combo, dashing after an N3 cancels the end lag, so it doesn't really result in less normal attack hits, and doing it after an N2 just takes you back to his N1, which the N2 comes out very fast after that N1, so it's also not really resulting in less hits. So your normal attack dash combo should typically look like N3, N3D, dash after every other N3, or N3, N2D, so performing a full N3, then dash after the N2 in the subsequent combo. You will want to ensure you have good timing with these dashes though, because doing it at the wrong time can result in starting to perform a normal attack, but then you cancel it without the damage going off, and that would be a DPS loss. If you're not comfortable with the timing, just spam normal attacks and hold on to the dash for dodging. One more very important gameplay tip with Wanderer is, I very often see people think that if they get staggered on Wanderer, they have to fall all the way down, then wait for him to get all the way back up again. But just like any other character, Wanderer can recover from his staggered animation by simply pressing either the dash or jump button. You'll see a special recovery icon for this. Some people mistakenly think that this consumes Skydroller points, but it doesn't. If you're losing Skydroller from pressing this, then you likely panicked and pressed the dash button twice. So he recovered from the first input, then did an actual dash from the second. So in short, If you get staggered on Wanderer, just press either the dash or jump button one time, and then you can get right back to attacking without losing any Sky Dweller. Now, with that said, we can now go over his teams. Just keep in mind I calculate at a higher standard than most theory crafters, so these numbers are going to be higher than what you've seen from others. But Wanderer's typical team structure is going to be Wanderer, Farazan, Bennett, then the fourth option is a flex slot. Generally, the best fourth is going to be Farina or C4 Jean. Yunjin and Aoife can be good alternatives that aren't too far behind, although Yunjin is worse in AoE. And with Aoife, you'll just use him on Scroll and Thrilling Tales, casting his skill and performing a single normal attack before swapping to Wanderer. Fischl and Yelan can be decent single-target sub-DPS options, particularly if you need their element for a specific burst mechanic, but Farina is kinda just better than Yelan here. Venti doesn't calc great, but his grouping is invaluable in specific mobbing scenarios. Just, unfortunately, these scenarios aren't common anymore. If you want to play with a shield in the flex slot, which one is best fluctuates depending on what investment level your Wanderer is at, but generally you can expect Lanya to be best if you have Seed Lali's weapon, Style Carl's watch, since it lets her give Wanderer a good buff while also doing good damage of her own. If you don't have this, you can generally expect Layla to be the best if you're consistently getting cryo buff with her, which is easy if she's C6. However, if you're not getting it consistently, C6 Toma will be better while being easier to use. Now, there are some other ways you can build Wanderer's teams outside of just the Farazan Bennett car. You can use a Escoffier instead of Bennett if you're using Farina. It's not as strong, but can be good if you need Bennett on another team, or facing enemies that need Cryo, or if you just like having Freeze. If you have Innefa, you can make a strong Taser team with Farazan, Innefa, and Yelan, trading out personal damage on Wanderer for more sub-DPS. But you can also get a shield from Innefa by doing this, so this is a really good team option for a C0 Wanderer, but as you start to get his Constellations, it will fall behind due to having less buffing. If you don't have C6 Farazan, you can do Wanderer, Farina, Innefa, Bennett. In this team, you basically treat him as an on-field taser driver, doing good personal damage for a driver instead of buffing like a Sucrose or Aoife. As mentioned in the artifact section, this is the type of team where you want to use Wanderer on 4-piece VV. If you're using Wanderer and he's around C0 to C2 investment level, this team is actually pretty similar in power level to his Hyper teams, while having a shield and not having Farazan, so that's pretty good. But overall, the exacts of what team is best for Wanderer heavily depends on his exact investment level. I have a spreadsheet where I've calculated most of his team options with him at C0, C1, C2, and C6, so you can get an idea of what should be best for you. I'll have the sheet linked in the pinned comment and description. So let's now go over his Constellations and vertical investment priority. His C1 and C2 don't really hold up to modern day early Constellations, but they're still good, about 10 to 12% increases each. C1 in particular will make him feel better to play with the attack speed, and get his free dashes up faster, making him easier to play without a shield. Generally, for his early vertical investment, I'd recommend getting Wanderer to C1 R1. This is a great early stopping point, and then C2 R1 is also great if you want to go a bit further. C3 is only a 5% increase on paper, but it increases his burst's damage by about 18%, which could result in it finishing off enemies that you would have otherwise needed to start a new rotation for. Saving that time can be particularly useful in staging an onslaught where every single second really matters. So while I wouldn't advise going for C3, it can still be a good pickup. If you plan on to be a Wanderer main long term, then I would advise going for C6 if you can within reason. Between the coordinated attacks and extra field time it gives, this is more than a 50% damage increase from C5, which to this day is still one of the biggest percentile increases of a C6. So you're going to feel a night and day difference in power once you get it. The coordinated attacks also result in a much higher hit count and a Nemo application, which can make Wanderer far more efficient at dealing with shields and certain enemy mechanics, which will be very important in staging an onslaught. Aside from Wanderer's own constellations, unlike many other DPS, he unfortunately doesn't have access to strong constellations from 5-star supports, pretty much only Farina's C1 and C2, but his own constellations are better for his team, and Farina's constellations won't do anything for him if you need her on another team, or are facing an enemy where you don't really want her. You will likely get a stronger support option than Farina eventually anyway, so definitely prioritize Wanderer's constellations over hers for him. So that takes us to the last thing to discuss, which is future potential. Currently, aside from Farazan and Bennett, the quality of Wanderer's team options is really quite lacking. Farina doesn't actually do that much with him since she's solo Hydro, not getting any buffs at all and having low fanfare with Bennett for healing. The only reason she's the best option right now is because the other options are just so low quality. So there is a good room for us to eventually get a future support as a big upgrade. Currently, Durin is rumored to be a Pyro sub DPS plus buffer. We have no idea what type of buffing he's expected to have, but that could very well be the fourth slot we're waiting on. Another future support possibility is Yehoda. She's a Nemo and from Notcry, so she could very well introduce a Lunar Swirl. But Wanderer gets a lot of swirls, so a possible Lunar Swirl could potentially create good new team options for him. Then Columbina could also be good, used in place of Yelan or Frina in his Nefer Taser team options. If she's an off-field Hydro meant for Lunar reaction teams, she would almost certainly be an upgrade there. But this is purely speculation. All three of these characters could end up having no synergy with him at all. Still, it's probably a good idea to plan around being able to pull for them in case they do end up being upgrades. And that's everything. If you found this guide helpful, please be sure to like and subscribe and comment your thoughts below. Also, feel free to join my Discord where you can communicate with me and my community directly. Thanks, goodbye.